took control of things, all in the solo way. And if you pattern my trend, I make you my protege. Crossing that soldier race, niggas don't know them days. Take you in back of the buildings, make you expose your rage. Take you across the tracks, make you explode the face. Now you official now, but you got a soul to say. I just been cooking on you. I'm about to
What up, Jamaica?
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's Friday.
It is Friday.
And we back.
We back. You were missed last week.
And I'm especially back. Yeah. I don't know if I was missed, though. I
mean,
Mrs. Mira she held it down.
She did. She sat in the big chair.
All of us women.
It was a all of us women special edition. And it was wonderful. I liked it. I loved it. But she, relinquished the chair back.
Well, thank you, Amira. I appreciate you. Wherever you at, I'm sure you'll be on in a second or see this some other time. I appreciate you. Keep holding it down.
Yeah.
While you was here, I was in the island of Kings. Of the United Kingdom of London.
You really called it that. Okay.
I mean, hey, it's the United Kingdom. That's what it's called.
Right.
Just like we United States. But anyway.
Yeah. You were across the pond.
I got to visit some brothers at a place called Belmarsh Prison. It's a maximum security prison in London. There's an organization called Black History 365. We know something about that. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
That's going inside and trying to create educational opportunities for brothers that are inside, inspire them with some brothers that have gone through similar experiences and found some success despite of the hardships of being incarcerated. I was honored to be there. Brother Dan White, Caroline Parker, and more. And I got a chance to speak at some universities about the work that's happening here in the States. There's a lot of similarities between us and them, but anyway, I'll cut that short.
Listen,
It was an amazing trip.
It was a big deal repping BPI.
Yeah,
because BPI is global.
Yeah,
BPI is global. Bar Prison Initiative still expanding on that 25-year anniversary celebration. It's I imagine going to be a year-long celebration for BPI and the work that they do, which is super important. So glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Good to be back.
I really am.
Back in the States.
Focus Fridays.
Nothing
like flying back into New York after a long trip. I promise you. Promise you we got one of the most beautiful places in the world right here in the Northeast. We just don't recognize. But anyway.
I mean, when you're in the concrete jungle, sometimes you don't know the trees exist. Yeah. But you did share a beautiful picture of what it looks like. So get outside a little bit more, folks.
That's right.
But in the meantime, in between time, we are busy here. Quick, community update of some things that have been going on and are continuing to go on. We just want, the music is going to happen. So this week was School Board Appreciation or School Board Recognition Week.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Jamaica. And to all school board members. Thank you, Sean.
Congratulations, Jamaica Mom.
Thank you.
I was sidetracked just for a quick second. Yes, I kept hearing noise. I'm like, where's it coming from?
It was coming from there. All right. But to all the school board members, especially here in the city of Schenectady, the greater capital region, that recognition. We don't get paid for all the work that we do. We are the only elected office that is not paid. Dog catchers, they're elected, they get paid. But we are responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars for our school districts. And so this week, Board Recognition Week, and I am going to celebrate my board recognition tonight at the Albany Stadium. So if anybody wants to come out, 51 South Pearl Street in Albany, doors open at 10 p.m. It is main events event. It's going to be a lot of fun. He always does the damn thing. Short throwdown. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tonight, Coming up this week, there are some less fun things. On Thursday, October 24th, from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Schenectady High School cafeteria, there's going to be a screening of weapon screening devices. As we know, the school board, in a vote of 6-1, voted to have weapon screening inside our school district for the first time ever. And they are going to have a bit of a fair of these different potential businesses and the types of weapon screening devices they have. It is from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Schenectady High School cafeteria on October 24th. More fun, though, is the fact that winter sports signups has begun.
Okay.
For Schenectady School District. I imagine other school districts as well are signing up for winter sports. But even though we're signing up for winter sports, do not forget the sports that are happening now. Football still happening now. Volleyball is happening. Bump, bump, diving for the balls. What up to Malia Miles, who dove for the ball, saved it for our team, got all kinds of touches at the last game. That's right, baby. I saw you. If you can get to a game, either here at a home game or away, please do. Our kids need us cheering them on. And then next weekend, Halloween's coming. There's a whole bunch of candy that's going to be out there.
Why are
in
you
all
saying
kinds
that
of
like
places.
you don't like Halloween
because
and the costumes and all the things? I mean, I've seen your house on Halloween.
You've seen my children in my house on Halloween all dressed up, and I'm going to go get free candy. I'm like, I'll buy you the bag of candy. I don't want to walk to strangers' houses. It's the only time of year that we tell kids to take candy from strangers. I digress. There's a lot of different trunk or treat events that are happening. Different schools in Schenectady and beyond, churches, community groups. We will share as many as we can so that folks know where you can go and help your kid get free candy. Rotterdam Viaport is going to have an event. And most of them are not actually on Halloween because Halloween falls during the week.
Oh.
So it's the weekend before. And so go get your free candy, and remember that you get to decide which candy your kid eats, and which one goes in your pocket. That's all I say. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and follow all of us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more information.
Click like,
subscribe, share, tag your crew. There's some things going on, and if we miss something, it means you didn't tell me. That's what that means. that's how that goes.
Click like, subscribe,
share, all that stuff.
Share all the good stuff.
Because there is a
Black
lot
perspective,
of good stuff.
Focus Friday, good stuff. Sad stuff.
There's sad stuff. There is indeed sad stuff that we're going to talk about, because we're talking about these different community opportunities and events. And unfortunately, they don't always have a happy ending. And recently in the city of Schenectady, there was a party where a bunch of young folks were. And then there was a shooting at that party, where two individuals were shot, one of them being 15 and the other one being 13. The young man, Debar Knowles, passed away from his injuries. The young girl, who is an 8th grader, is still with us. Does not, she is traumatized. Her family is traumatized. Our community is traumatized at yet again another loss in our community, at gun violence, no less.
Yeah.
So that is something we're dealing with. It is something we talked about as part of All of Us Women last night when we had our Third Thursday conversation online. It's a thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's incredibly disheartening to continue to see, our community impacted by the loss of our young people. Right. I don't, know the entire circumstances, and I don't know if I even need to. It's a group of kids, kids my daughter's age, actually, that are hanging out, getting together, and someone's got a gun, and now some people are dead and injured. And the conversation, or excuse me, sorry, not the conversation, the list of people, young people that have been killed by guns in this country continues to ever, expand.
Yeah.
And we are always stuck, like wringing our hands and looking at the situation with, what is it? What do they say? Thoughts and prayers. Can we have unity? There's a lot of these type of terms or phrases being bandied about. It always is, and then nothing happens. So I won't be surprised on at least our governmental level, that nothing happens. But what is it that we can do in our communities to keep us safe, right? What has to happen? What are the conversations?
And before we dive into that a little bit, I do want to give. There are no words. Taisha Murray is the mother of this young man, and this is the second child she's lost to violence.
Wow.
And so, like, it's compounded for her as an individual to be going through this again right now. And services for DeBar are tomorrow at the Bethel Baptist Church in Troy. Visitations from 9 to 10. The services are at 10 a.m. The information will be on our social media pages. And there is a GoFundMe page for the family to help with the costs that come along with this. And so, additionally, there was an ask, and some of the members of All of Us Women have stepped up to have food for the repast that's happening tomorrow after the services. If there is someone that sees this video and says, hey, I want to support this family, food, water, napkins, whatever, if there is some way that you want to help, please reach out, and I can help you connect to the people that are offering support to Taisha right now, because there are some amazing women who have stepped up to support and make sure that Taisha is not going through this alone, and that she has the support she needs, and that on tomorrow, hopefully the only thing Taisha is doing is mourning the loss of her son and not worried about any of the logistics. And me knowing who these other women are involved, I am sure she'll get to do that. Because today, tomorrow, and all the days to come, the rest of us will still be grappling with how do we prevent this from happening again?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah,
it's a must. And maybe we can begin to have more of these conversations, but it's incredibly frustrating to know that that nothing else will really happen unless it happens out of the community.
Right.
There's nothing else.
The same things will happen, right? So the police will do an investigation. They will or they won't find the individual or individuals who are responsible for these acts of violence against these young people. They themselves may be young people, whoever they are or it is. And someone may or may not be convicted of this crime. And then if someone is convicted, they will be put in a cage. It will not stop the next act of violence from happening at the hands of someone else.
No.
And so that is the thing that we talked about last night, us women. Beyond that part of it, what does prevention look like, Sean? How do we? And lots of folks have ideas. Tabitha Wilson, I believe, shared something. She's a school board member in Albany, long before this, about what are the things. It was either her or maybe it was Coach Carmen. Someone had shared something about what are the acts of intervention that actually create safety and prevent violence.
I think one of the first steps for me is identifying the root causes of the violence in the first place and what's going on in our communities and what has been going on in our communities for generations, that these acts of violence, happen predominantly in places where people are poor, right? And our Black and brown communities in the inner cities of New York and here, right? There are root causes. And until we start really investing in that end of it, instead of always trying to tackle the symptoms, right? And have these long conversations about this, the same kind of list of things that we talk about every single time about, how we get together and it's not right to do this and all of this. Yeah, okay. The root causes. This stuff has become so culturally embedded in poor communities. If we don't begin making serious investments as a society, right, and addressing that, then we're just going to be spinning our wheels, because this will happen again and again. And like, the system that we have only addresses the individual, only addresses the acute act that happened, and then that's it. We don't get at the root cause.
I'm pretty sure we've said this before. The United States is a nation of violence. It just dictates who's allowed to commit acts of violence without accountability or repercussions or consequences, right? State sanctioned violence is something that we experience every single day in our communities. Being over policed in those same communities that gun violence exists, and having police brutality still be a part of our society. So the cop can beat you into submission and say you were resisting arrest and tell you that I have to put you in handcuffs to prevent you from causing further harm.
Yeah.
But when we as individuals use that same ideology, you're being disrespectful. You did something, you took something from me. You broke some code or something, and I now am going to act violently towards you in response. We're told, no, you can't do that. Right? So the messaging that our young people get about what is an acceptable interaction for interpersonal issues is one of those things that I've seen discussed online, as well as things that you talk about: access to opportunities, where are the jobs, where are the things that our young people, especially because right now we're talking about our young people, but even in general, if someone only sees the 4 blocks around their house and nothing else, what do they have to look forward to or believe is possible for them? Big up to the Big Picture program here in Schenectady that has internships for our 10th graders with businesses and organizations in our community, giving them that access and opportunity. But there are so many different pieces, and how violence shows up in our communities may be different than how violence shows up in, say, Niskayuna or Columbine, but it does still show up, right? How it's talked about is different.
Yeah.
When a white student shows up and creates a mass murder, that one person is talked about as an individual. When our young Black and brown kids do something, it's those kids. Collective. Overgeneralization.
Yeah.
That's a thumbs down, not a thumbs up. Thank you, Zoom. So there are so many different pieces that invest in communities.
I mean, yeah, there are a lot of there are a lot of pieces, and once again, it's frustrating, and we're back having this conversation, and we're having it again and again and again, until, like I said, and we're able to address root causes of violence. The country worships violence. I mean, it worships it in our athletics, in our movies. There's a cultural kind of resonance that everyone has with violence, and I love how you put it with what's acceptable, who can do it, who can't do it, all of that. I think you're absolutely right. And then here we are again. more guns than people. And 6 guns to every one person. That's 330 million people times 7. I'm not gonna do the math. Yeah. That's a lot of damn guns.
It is.
And that's the guns that's an average, right?
Right.
We don't really know what the number is. I mean,
and people will say, "Oh, but there's strict gun laws in New York, so why aren't they working?" Because the guns aren't coming from New York.
Yeah.
They're coming from Florida. They're coming from Texas. They're coming from the places that don't have strict gun laws and that can move freely throughout the country. And the NRA is one of the largest lobbying groups. The National Rifle Association is one of the largest lobbying groups in the United States. I actually would wonder, which one's larger, the NRA or APAC?
It's a good question.
And they both have similar goals.
I want to say probably NRA, but who knows? I don't think it really matters. They're both behemoths when it comes to influence in our legislative process, period, point blank. And we all know it, and it happens right in front of our face, and it's on to the next one.
And so here we are with these acts of violence happening locally in our communities, intrinsically connected to
the violence happening internationally, with the billions of dollars, $22
billion in a year. The U.S. has given to Israel.
They've given to Israel military funding to buy weapons, bombs, bullets, guns, jets, the whole 9 yards.
For genocide.
Just sent the newly whatever system, DAD system, to help them prevent any rockets from anywhere else coming in.
Iran.
In preparation for Israeli to do something that Iran responds to. Not that Iran is going to respond to anything else. Like, that's how I'm reading the news, both in the mainstream media on the U.S. side and with media where we're seeing overseas, is that it's not that they're thinking Iran's going to do something today. They're saying that Iran's going to do something in retaliation to what Israel does, and therefore, so we need to go make sure, because they know they're going to do something.
Yes.
It's a preventative measure too, because you get to think about, no one really wants to be accused of. You see what they did when a couple of our United States soldiers got killed, and how many missiles that Biden sent in response, in retaliation. Putting the U.S. troops there, and this is me listening to other pundits, not just me coming off the top of my head. You know, it'd be nice if I could think like this all the time, but as a strategy to say, hey, you make sure wherever they're located, make sure you're not hitting. And I guess that's not even the point, right? That's not even the major point. The point is that we're watching people getting burned to death in tents. We were seeing dozens upon dozens killed week by week, hundreds, 2,000 killed in Lebanon. And there doesn't seem to be an end to the bloodlust. It's like, and it's fully protected by the most probably advanced or effective military in the world, the United States of America. Yeah. And you're only, by sending those troops, you're only emboldening Netanyahu and his regime about what they can and cannot do.
Yes. And so in addition to the individuals that are reading the tea leaves, so to speak.
Yeah.
The Israeli government officials themselves have said what they are doing. Yeah. That killing the leader of Hamas has not stopped them from continuing the war. Well, I don't know that it's fair to call it a war, but it has not stopped them from continuing to bomb civilians in Palestine, in Gaza, and annexing both Gaza and the West Bank, taking more land, right? They are, at the international community recognizes that the state of Israel is an occupying nation of Palestinian land.
Yeah.
And its own officials, Israeli officials, have said, we're taking Gaza, we're taking the West Bank, and we're going to take parts of Lebanon too. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. is, mad at Russia for wanting to take parts of Ukraine. We must support Ukraine. Russia cannot take parts of Ukraine. But Israel,
once again,
it's simply
double standard.
It's self-defense.
Yeah, it's the double standard.
It's self-defense for the last 76 years of the genocide, and it's disgusting.
Can we say that it's really just what we're seeing is just an example of just raw power.
Yes.
Might is right.
Yes.
In the senses. You think so?
Yes. I think also what I hope some people in the world recognize is that what we are seeing live and in color is what was experienced by indigenous people here on this land as well as other lands before this. The fact that we saw a young man attached to an IV, a child, 19 years old, attached to an IV who had been displaced 5 times, burned to death alive in a tent, is absolutely what indigenous people on this land faced, being burned alive. It is what the Holocaust victims faced and said, never again, burned alive. Across the globe, we've watched the occupation and the stealing of land because they could.
Raw power.
And it's exactly what we're seeing now. And we're not going to see an end to it until we do have a united mass movement that calls for an end to these types of tactics. That is a united front. It is the same that we saw with the Vietnam War, that people rose up and stood together. It was the same that we saw with Iraq, that people stood up and rose together. And we need it now. We need it now for both Palestine and Lebanon, as well as for our local communities. A call for an end to state-sanctioned violence. So if you're ready, I'm waiting.
So I guess that leads us into the next part of our conversation, which is vote.
Or why? Voting.
Voting.
When and why?
There's a especially contentious presidential election happening this year. I don't know if any of y'all have heard about it, but there's a lot of anxiety, trepidation from from all sides that exist and have any interest in this conversation. Early voting starts
October 26th.
October 26th.
Here in New York.
Here in New York.
In case you're watching from someplace else.
And
goes until November 3rd.
Here's the thing. Yes. And this election is extremely important. But we got to a place where we're choosing between this like lesser evil thing, right? Because of the apathy. Like the groundwork starts at home, learning about voting, learning why, being kind of having an understanding that your community does belong to you, and that's how you have say so in your community. It's not taught everywhere. It's certainly not taught in early childhood, and it's taught later on in high school when you're not really connected. But early voting starting, we got a lot of we I don't know how much time we're gonna have to talk about this. Jamaica, you the keeper of the time.
But we got like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on
with the early voting and the conversations that are happening. Like folks are having these conversations. I'm gonna keep saying, all of us women, we talked about 2 things last night. How we deal with grief and violence in our communities.
Yeah.
And how to register to vote, and what are the things you need to know. What up again to Vivian, who did an amazing presentation to educate us, not just about early voting, but there have been changes to the laws. And if you're a part of All of Us Women, you got the PowerPoint presentation sent to you, so you didn't have to take notes, because there are some changes around if you want to do an early mail-in ballot. You don't need a reason. You just say you want an early mail-in ballot, and you can get an early mail-in ballot. If you want an absentee ballot, that's different. And you need a reason. And they're very specific reasons. You can actually have a designee assigned to go pick things up for you, but they have to be assigned.
Yeah.
and there were so many different pieces. Vivian taught me some things, and I really appreciated it. Whether or not you vote for the two main candidates, one of the things that I have been stressing, and others have talked about this as well, is the importance of showing up at the polls because your local elected officials are watching. Local elections are next year. Albany, Schenectady, other places, whether it's your city council, your mayor, right? Albany, your mayor. What you do this year, which neighborhoods show up, who's at the polls, how many people were participating, they're all going to look at those voting rolls and see which neighborhood showed up. And then they will decide who they need to go and talk to when they're running for their campaigns. I'm not saying it's all maniacal. It is a strategy. And I know this, unfortunately, too well. And so if you don't show up, not only have you counted yourself out for this election, regardless of who you vote for or what party line you vote on, right? Because in New York, there's the Democrat, conservative, Republican, Working Families Party. I feel like I'm missing something. Whatever line you vote on, you have made a statement that you are showing up. And people will say, New York's not a swing state. What does it matter if I go and vote? It matters because the local elections are looking and they're paying attention. And we do want to show up and say, hey, listen, I'm here, I'm watching, I'm paying attention, and I'm going to show up next year.
Voter apathy.
I understand why. I do.
You know,
I get frustrated.
It's a like, as much as you're very passionate about voting, there's many people that are just, it feels more like work. It feels like something that doesn't really matter,
right?
Doesn't impact me. I got too much other stuff to do.
Yep.
You know, I ain't got time to go down there and vote. I ain't got time to figure out a ballot. I ain't got time, all the things, right?
Call me and ask any questions you want. League of Women Voters,
exactly.
Board of Elections, there are resources.
But people will say all of what I just said, right? And they can hear that information as you're talking about and ignore it, but then go sit on a porch or go talk on a phone or be on a social media or the barbershop and just be complaining about what's happening in our community as opposed to trying to do something about it. So message, get off the porch. I don't want to sound like Obama. I think Obama like called like wait. Pardon me, pause. Wait a minute.
Given how much he bombed the
Here's
Middle
what
East.
Here's what I'm saying. We are responsible for our communities. It ain't enough to just talk about it. Let's if you want to know more about what it takes to vote, where you have to vote, you can just come to our page. You'll get that information. It'll be on our website, and all our outlets, right?
Yeah.
So you can do that. You can reach out to the email. We'll hook you up. We'll do that legwork for you. You just got to contact us. All I'm trying to say is that if we're ever going to have any real say-so in our communities, we have to begin to take responsibility for it. And voting is only one aspect of that, right? It's one aspect of it. There's a lot more that has to happen. And just sitting on the sidelines complaining ain't going to do it. It might feel good for your ego to articulate this whole massive problem and this is why it's happening, but we can get to the root cause, or we can solve it, better yet, if we take action and we do things together. It ain't got to be 50, 100 of y'all. It could be me in Jamaica. We did all of this, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's just my thoughts. It's my feeling on the election.
Chad Putman,
I don't know who's going to win.
Chad Putman says get off the sidelines. And I always remember that he said that, and you reminded me of it with what you just said. No matter who wins, we ain't done.
No matter who wins, we ain't done. That's right.
No matter who wins, we ain't done. Because it's not just this election, it is the next election. And each person who is elected to represent us makes decisions about the money that is spent. How it's spent, where those dollars go. So will we have a community center on Hamilton Hill?
Man, we didn't even talk about it. We didn't even get to talk about that. Maybe next Friday.
We're going to have to talk about it next Friday because it's coming down to the wire. But those people make those decisions about where the
That's
money
right.
goes, whether or not you're going to spend it on law enforcement that has no proven track record of making us safer,
Or casinos,
please,
or just like
or community
remodeling the
centers
things. Yeah,
and
exactly.
access and opportunity and jobs. Like, there's way better ways to spend $22 billion than the genocide of a people who are deemed less than. And if Black folks and other people of color and other marginalized groups in this society don't understand that, we got concerns. But
we got concerns.
We are going to make it happen, because I'm all about the positive today, anyways.
I'm about to say,
and maybe it's because outside of all of the trauma and the negative, I have been recently surrounded by amazing women who were just like, yo, even if we're feeling the pain, what's the solution? And like, how are we going to make it happen?
Nice.
And we're talking about it, and we're celebrating the good, and we're celebrating the wins. We have had wins, and we're going to have more. And we need everybody, not just at the polls. Yes, at the polls. Show them you showing up and paying attention. And then the day after.
Speaking of day after,
yeah,
day after election this year is going to be quite interesting, no matter who wins.
No matter who wins.
No matter who wins.
Yeah, it is.
All y'all laughing about, or apathetic to what you're seeing on the news, all the nonsense happening in Palestine. Be careful what you're laughing at, man.
Yeah, because when it's in your neighborhood. So we do have to wrap it up. What, you ain't got your music ready to take us out?
I do not, but I will.
You will. Be sure to show up next Friday at 7 p.m. for Focus Friday Live. Again, like us, follow us, all of those things on all of the ways: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. That.
Peace, y'all.
Laters.
With some bricks of amnesia, begging my connect, let me get the bricks cheaper.